Imagine a world where the loudest voices are always heard, where the most confident, even if wrong, are rewarded, where depth is mistaken for weakness, and where the quiet thinkers are drowned out by the noise of self-promotion. Now look around. This isn't a dystopian fantasy, it's reality. We live in a society that praises the bold, the charismatic, the self-assured, even when they have nothing substantial to say. Meanwhile, the introspective, the deep, why? Why does the modern world favor the narcissist's swagger over the philosopher's depth? Why are we conditioned to applaud those who appear successful rather than those who are substantial? The answer is not just unsettling. It reveals a fundamental flaw in how we measure human worth. Consider this. A man spends his life chasing fame, crafting a persona designed for mass appeal. He learns to charm, to manipulate perceptions, to sell an image rather than a truth. Society rewards him with money, status, admiration. Another man spends his life in quiet contemplation, wrestling with existential questions, refining his character in solitude. Society ignores him, or worse, labels him an outcast, a misfit, someone who doesn't get it. Who is truly successful? The first man has followers. The second has wisdom. The first man is seen, the second man sees. Yet, we are trained from birth to envy the first and dismiss the second. Why? Because society does not reward depth. It rewards visibility. It does not value truth. It is the friction between what you've been taught to want and what your soul actually craves. You've been conditioned to chase validation, to perform, to mold yourself into something digestible for the masses. But another part of you, the deeper part, knows there is more. It whispers, "Why must I shrink myself to be accepted? Why is authenticity punished while artifice is rewarded? Why does the world prefer a well-crafted lie over an uncomfortable truth?" This is not just a social observation, it is a spiritual crisis. So here it is, the question that will unravel everything. What if the system is not broken, but working exactly as designed? What if society needs narcissists to keep the machine running? What if depth is dangerous to those in power because it leads to real questions, questions that threaten the status quo? And most importantly, what do you lose when you play their game? The answer is coming. But first, you must see the invisible forces that keep this cycle alive. The modern world did not stumble into this paradox by accident. It was engineered, slowly, subtly, by forces both psychological and systemic. To understand why narcissism is rewarded and depth is punished, we must dig into the dark soil of human nature itself. Carl Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And what is the easiest way to avoid self-confrontation? Distraction, performance, the endless chase for external validation. Narcissism thrives because it offers a seductive escape from inner emptiness. The narcissist does not ask, "Who am I?" They declare, "This is who I am." Social media did not create this dynamic. It simply weaponized it. Algorithms feed on engagement, and engagement is driven by emotion, not truth. The more brazen, the more controversial, the more self-assured a persona is, the more attention it commands. Depth, nuance, and introspection do not trend. They do not go viral. This is why the loudest voices dominate, not because they are right, but because they are loud. Arthur Schopenhauer spent his life in near total obscurity, dismissed as a pessimist, a crank. Yet his work now stands as some of the most profound in Western philosophy. Why was he ignored in his time? Because depth unsettles. A narcissist tells you what you want to hear. A deep thinker tells you what you need to hear, and often you don't want to listen. This is the hidden contract of modern society. Stay shallow, and you will be rewarded. Go deep, and you will be alone. Jean-Paul Sartre warned of bad faith, the act of pretending to be something you're not to avoid the terror of freedom. And what is narcissism, if not the ultimate performance of bad faith? The modern world does not want real individuals. It wants brands. It wants personas that can be packaged, sold, and consumed. Depth resists packaging. Authenticity. So here is the ugly truth. Society rewards narcissism because narcissism maintains the system. It keeps people chasing validation rather than truth, consuming rather than creating, performing rather than being. Depth, on the other hand, is revolutionary. It leads to questions like, why do we live this way? Who benefits from my compliance? what is this all for? And those questions are dangerous. The effects of this system are not just philosophical, they are visceral, shaping lives in ways most people never stop to examine. When society rewards performance over substance, people begin to lose touch with their own authenticity. They chase likes, promotions, and social approval, but wake up one day feeling like a stranger to themselves. Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, warned that the existential vacuum, a life devoid of real meaning, would become the defining crisis of modernity. And here we are. People no longer ask, what is true? They ask, what will get attention? The result? A culture drowning in hollow spectacle, where even personal tragedies are commodified into content. Complex ideas require patience, but in an attention economy, patience is punished. Nietzsche saw this coming. The herd accepts as true, the truly thoughtful are pushed to the fringes. The artist who refuses to dumb down their work goes unrecognized. The philosopher who questions everything is dismissed as overthinking. The quiet observer who sees through facades is labeled cynical. This isn't an accident. Depth is isolating because it refuses to play the game. And in a world that runs on social validation, isolation feels like death. So most people conform. They force themselves to perform, to smile, to pretend, until they forget who they were before the mask. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, explains why this system is so psychologically corrosive. When society rewards narcissism, people bury their depth to survive. The introvert forces themselves to be outgoing. The sensitive person hardens themselves to seem strong. The thinker learns to stay quiet to avoid being difficult. But the repressed doesn't disappear. It festers. Anxiety, depression, and a vague sense of, why do I feel so empty? Follow. Aldous Huxley predicted a world where people would love their oppression, where distraction and pleasure would be used to control. Look around. The most narcissistic among us are not just tolerated, they're celebrated. They dominate politics, entertainment, and business because they excel at manipulating emotions. Meanwhile, those who speak difficult truths are ignored, or worse, vilified. The greatest casualty of this system is truth itself. Not just factual truth, but personal truth. The ability to know oneself, to live with integrity, to resist the pressure to become a caricature. Most people never realize what's happening. They just feel a dull ache, a sense that something is off, but can't name it. The system wants you to believe there are only two options: conform or be crushed. But this is a lie, one designed to keep you trapped. There is a third way: strategic rebellion. You do not have to reject society entirely, only its sickness. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try it, you will be lonely often and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself." This is not about isolation, but discernment. Stop feeding the machine. Withdraw attention from hollow spectacle. Reward depth. Support thinkers. As Schopenhauer noted, ordinary people merely think how they shall spend their time. A man of intellect tries to use it. You don't have to choose between being understood and being free, but you do have to choose which one matters more. You were taught that fitting in would make you happy, that being admired would fulfill you, that playing the game would lead to success. But what if the opposite is true? What if the deepest, most unshakable fulfillment comes not from being seen, but from seeing, not from being validated, but from knowing? Here is the secret no one tells you. The very things that make you an outcast in this society are the keys to your liberation. Your sensitivity? It's not weakness, it's perception. Your solitude? It's not loneliness, it's sanctuary. Your refusal to simplify the complex? That's not indecision, it's integrity. The world tried to convince you these traits were flaws because depth cannot be controlled. A man who thinks for himself is dangerous to any system built on obedience. Consider this. The narcissist depends on the crowd. They need applause, attention, constant validation. But the deep thinker? They draw strength from within. The narcissist feeds on external praise. The deep thinker transcends it. This is why history's greatest minds were often ignored in their time. They were playing an entirely different game. As Nietzsche wrote, The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. You stand at a crossroads. 1. Continue chasing approval in a system designed to keep you hungry. 2. Withdraw entirely, becoming a hermit in protest. 3. The third way. Live in the world, but not of it. The third path is the most radical, to move through society without being defined by it, to observe its madness with quiet amusement rather than desperate participation. To use the system without letting it use you. When you stop seeking validation from a broken world, something extraordinary happens. You become free. Not free from pain or struggle or loneliness, but free from the need for this system to approve of you. And in that freedom, you discover something terrifying and beautiful. You were never the problem. The world was. This is not an ending, but a beginning. The narcissistic world will keep spinning, but you no longer have to orbit it. Walk away, not in defeat, but in triumph. The deeper you go, the more the world will try to pull you back. Let that be your compass. Where they laugh, think. Where they rush, pause. Where they demand certainty, embrace mystery. And when they ask why you refuse to play the game, smile and say nothing. Some truths are too powerful to be spoken aloud. They can only be lived.